If you have been asking if healing is real,
stick around and find out that healing is for real, and we don't mean maybe. My name is Tony.
and I am Zane, and we are two witnesses and representatives
Of the miraculous gospel of healing.
Bam! I'm Tony Myers in Ferrego.
in Boom, Zane el Fuego and the mic. We're back in the house, the miraculous gospel of healing.
And today we are finishing up what we had started in the last episode, talking about the offerings. And we're going to be talking about the peace offering.
Right.
Right before we get into that, though, share this series, because this series is turning out to really open up some hearts and some minds as to what the new covenant really is, what the Torah and Paul was showing. And I mean when I say there's nothing about Western Christianity that is right. And this series of teaching is showing the reason why.
Yeah.
And how far off the modern westernized Constantinople Christianity is so far off, which is why I say dump everything that this Christianity has taught you in the trash can, light a match to it, start off fresh. And when you start off from the perspective we're talking about, you're on the right path, the path of life, not death. If you're in Western Christianity, you're on the path to death, because that's where your reference point is. All right, take it away, Mr. Holy Brother Zane.
So far, we cover burnt offering and sin. And the burnt offering, just to recap speedily, the burnt offering was actually the sacrifice of the animal nature as well as the animal will, which means if you believe you have death inside of you, and you believe you have a different will inside of you, like a different spirit, then you are actually keeping yourself from coming back into the garden, and therefore you're stopping the healing. Sin was the next one, which would be acts against God in particular, right, or God's will or perspective. That was done for you already. That was the second thing, the second sacrifice that was done for Moses and the children of Israel to come back in, which means they had to lose a consciousness. The purpose of the sin offering is that they lose a consciousness of sin. And all these things that we are taught that we're doing against God, to lose a consciousness of sin.
Or therefore, in other words, to get rid of what we see as our imperfections.
Well said. So if you see yourself as imperfect, you actually contributing to a lack of healing in your life. Because those things, remember, the sacrifice is to purge you, to identify that is no longer in you. So you have to be the opposite of those things. The third one in particular is the peace offering. Now, the peace offering was done to show thanks unto God for his bountifulness. And this was an offering that was necessary for persons who were actually facing life-threatening circumstances. Now, you notice here the word peace, because that, by the way, that peace offering is tied directly into Isaiah 53. That says, for he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for iniquities, the chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed, which means healing and peace is one and the same. Now, the verse before that, it says that he carried our grief and sorrows, which means that and all is actually connected to peace, and therefore he carried that. So if you have grief and sorrows, or you're living from the perspective that grief and sorrows is in you, then you're contradicting the sacrifice as well and preventing the healing. But what does grief and sorrows mean?
Also, that word grief means it can mean physical and spiritual pain. So
Yes,
that all ties into sickness as well.
that's grief. That's grief, bro. Well identified. Sorrow, go grab a concordance. It means worrisomeness.
Yes.
So if you are living worrisome, you're contradicting the sacrifice or the offering. You're contradicting the offering that Jesus has actually made for you, and you are preventing yourself from being healed. If you believe that the sickness is in you, that sickness dwells in you, then you're contradicting the offering that Jesus has made for you. And many of us live with these things and think it is normal. It is not normal. That's the wisdom of death. If you want healing, then you have to get rid of worrisomeness. And that means that you have to put on the perspective of not being worried. Being at, what was the word? Trust. Trust means quietness and security. Not worried. Right? And also what Holy Brother Tony just actually identified there with the grief. If you believe that is in you, then you are preventing your body from actually seeing what you want to see. The next, that was peace. The next is the guilt offering. And oh, how this one right here, Western Christianity has normalized it and made it godly when it is not godly. Guilt offering in particular was offered to, basically you could say, if you are living in any form of shame or any anticipation that you're not perfect before God, you are harboring exactly what that was supposed to get rid of in you. Any form of, and here's how this actually reveals itself in you. You have reasons as to why you're not getting healed.
Yep.
Like you come to Holy Brother Tony and you say it's not working. That's because
it's
of your
not
shame.
working.
Your guilt.
Why? Because you're holding on to what you should. You're holding on to death.
You're holding on to death.
Which is why this is a series on death. Quit holding on to it.
If you're living from that perspective that is not working, or you actually looking, now I'm not saying that you shouldn't look for persons to pray for you. I'm not saying that. But if you think that you're not enough, and because you're not enough, you're looking for somebody who you think is enough, then you are living with shame, guilt and shame.
If you are looking for someone to stand in to replace you because they hear God answers their prayer, not mine, they're acting as a stand-in, then guess what? You're holding on to death.
And what you're looking at there is that you don't trust God. And by the way, that guilt offering was actually the offering that was offered for a breach of trust, which means if the offering has been made for you already, then you are supposed to be living in comfortable and confident and secure trust. If you're not in that space, you're actually harboring what has been done for you already. The last one in particular is usually like drink and food offerings. And what that is supposed to represent is, and get this here now, is that all of the works of your hands, you do it unto God. So here's where this applies. Some of you live in life for a whole bunch of reasons that is not unto God. For example, you get married because you're lonely, not because you're doing that unto God. You're going to work because, well, we have no food at home. You're not
You
doing it
go to
unto
work
God.
with a poverty-stricken mind.
Poverty-stricken mindset. You want God to bless you because the neighbor renovated his house. You want all of these things for all the reasons that's not unto God.
Here's a big one. You want God to bless you, so you paid your tithes like a good little Christian.
You're not giving it unto God, as in because you love God. If you're giving tithes, then you're falling back into dead works,
Because you're
which is
giving from obligation.
which is now contradicting the first offering, which is the burnt offering. You're going back into dead
Bam.
works. You're doing all of this for reasons that is not unto God, or
I want
or
each and
expression of God.
every person. Most of you need to listen to this episode more than once.
Mm.
Get it burnt into your heart, because when you understand this, the light will go off and you will be living the new covenant, the one of peace. And now, Zane, there's a specific reason why I'm going to say wrap it up, but let's go ahead and wrap up this episode.
All right. So far, just to recap, we covered peace offering. That peace offering was made for you. And so if you're living in a lack of, if you're living in worrisomeness, that's why you're not getting healed. You need to get rid of it. You believe all of these things inside of you. You're not living in confident trust, secure trust. Like you're not able to trust God like that and be confident. You need to get rid of that. The second one we covered was guilt. If you believe that you're imperfect, you're having difficulty in actually just resting and trust that God is healing you because He has made you perfect. You're behaving like the man in the garden, running from God and trying to hide amongst the other trees. And the last is you're doing things in your life for many other reasons, but not unto God. You're not doing it unto life. If you're not doing it unto God, you're not doing it unto life, then you're doing it unto death. Next episode, we will invert all the 5 so you can see what you need to put on. That is it, brother.
I am.
Boom. Yeshua.